family, it definitely wasn't just blood. It was anybody that he loved. That was family. So we have some lifetime friends of Dad here, and then a lot of family. One of the last things that my dad did before he passed was he was working with Sean, looking kind of through the descendants that he had. And he was trying to figure out, are there 41, 47, 48, 52? How many are there? And he was so amazed that he had so many people in his family. And almost every picture that I looked at when I was looking at pictures, put together a little speech that I'm going to be doing today about my dad, and a video. Almost every one, he was with family or friends. It was really hard to find a picture of him alone. And one of the things when he talks about himself, he just prides himself on being good with people and making friends, and he certainly did that. So I'm going to try to get through a little presentation of who my dad was. I went through a lot of his files. I learned a lot of things about my dad that I didn't know. And it's kind of strange because he was one of my best friends. I talked to Dad at least twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week, and he was a great advisor for me. One of the things that he feared wasn't getting old, but was becoming irrelevant. And he was never irrelevant. It's amazing how many people would go to tap into his wisdom that he had. This saying here, we printed out some of these cards so everybody that wants one can take one. But this saying here, life's journey is not to arrive at the grave safely in a well-preserved body, but rather to skid in sideways, totally used up and worn out, shouting, "Man, what a ride!" That was handwritten in one of his files, and the paper looked to be 25, 30 years old. And on there it said, "This is my philosophy." And what a great thing to find. You know, I could look at my dad, my experiences, everybody knew my dad in different ways. And you could kind of think about, well, who was he? What drove him? But this was at his core. This was it. He sucked the marrow out of the bone of life. He was going to get every little last drop that he could. And he certainly did. So that's why we have that up there. He's in one of Art Abrams' race cars. Art is here somewhere. But he was gracious enough to let Dad try to wreck his cars every summer. And I think this one, Art said, was taken maybe in 2002, but in actually 2014 or 15, Dad was actually racing dirt track as well. And he wouldn't fit in the car, so he had to fold his left leg under him to be able to fit in and sit there. But what's amazing is when Dan saw these, and we knew Dad was still racing, Dan's like, he doesn't have a roll bar. What happens if he flips? I'm like, hey, he's 80-some years old. He's had a great life. He's doing what he wants. You know, let him do it. You also notice here we've got a birthday party cake for my dad because today would have been his birthday. And it says, "Happy 120th birthday," because Dad always said he was going to live to be 120 years old. And as I went through his work resume and some of the things that he did outside of work and his family things and everything, it just occurred to me that my dad's years were like dog years. John Barlass years, 86 years is 120. So he made it, Dad. You did it. But on here we got the DJ. Wish we still own that today. That's worth about $4 million. I think Jeff Dunbar or somebody bought it for $1,000. Elephants, which he loved. We got scuba. We got palm trees. Balloon rides. Him and Darlene crashed in a balloon one time. Almost got killed. Remember getting dragged through the drainage ditch, Star? Yeah. It was fun.
A lot about the early jobs that I had on, which was shouldn't be up to me, it should be up to the people because they're going to be there. I'm not going to be there with like there.
Yeah.
And that thought continues. One of the things that continues about the continuing thought is that I do think it's nice for people to get together and to have a get-together, if you will. I think it's nice to have a gathering, if I can put them in words there, where people are kind of forced, in a sense, to get together and chat. And I think that it's nice to have everybody get together.
That's what he wanted. That was 4 days before he passed. Had a great conversation with my dad that we talked about a lot of things, but top on his mind was, I want to get everybody together, not for him, not to have a big somber thing, but for people to chat. I'm going to force them to chat. You know, John Barlass is still controlling things, even then. But he also had handwritten on his will. He said, everybody gets 1 day to be sad, and that's it, in his will. And so that was so John Barlass, so optimistic and upbeat. John Barlass, my dad, was born in Janesville in 1931. This is the actual hospital in 1931 that he was born in. And that's his, came home in a little crib carriage thing, and it's brand new. As I look through the photos, his parents just adored him, took such great care of him, great parents. Born in Janesville, but he moved to Minneapolis, moved to Milwaukee, Lake Charles, Louisiana, Salina, Kansas, Topeka, that was Mom's favorite, Wayzata, Deep Haven, Excelsior, Minnetonka, Lake Forest, Orono, Racine, Norton Shores, Gun Lake, Spring Lake, Cayman Islands. So if you were with Dad, you were moving, you were traveling, you were doing something. And I can't remember how many times Mom said she moved or how many houses they had, but it was a lot. And Darlene, on the second part, got dragged through a lot of this as well. Being with John Barlass, you were going to be active, for sure, because he was an active man. He was known by a lot of his friends growing up as Johnny. John, Dad, Papa, Papa the Great for his great-grandchildren. And of course I knew him as Dad, but I also knew him as one of my best friends. So I want to share a little bit about some of the things that I knew about him and learned about him. And as I talk to some of his long-term friends, I keep learning things as well, and that's really a fun thing to do. As I was going through his files, I found a 2-page note that he had written, and it was obviously putting together a resume or going to have an interview. And he wrote down, here's how I perceive myself. And here's what he wrote. See if you agree with how he perceived himself. Results-oriented, prepared, knowledgeable, persuasive, creative, tenacious and self-disciplined, conscious of people's needs, good listener, can draw people out. He likes people, has the ability to make them feel good. He said, I'm well organized, a good conversationalist, motivator and leader, lots of friends, good sense of humor, ambitious, skilled presenter, skilled negotiator, comfortable with dealing with all kinds of different people. And as I read that, I thought, man, that's my dad. That's who he was. Very, very good self-awareness. He also had a piece of paper in there about his management philosophy. And he rose to fairly high levels in some pretty important companies. He was general manager of Division of Westinghouse. He held vice president of engineering positions. He owned his own companies. But he said, I like to communicate. I like an open door policy. I manage by objectives. I like to recognize others' accomplishments. I help plan careers and then help them get there. I always provide answers and feedback. Loose reins. I let people do things. And so often in my life growing up, I'd hear that phrase, do your thing. Go do your thing. Everybody should do their thing. And that was even in his work life. He wanted people to do their thing, to have that freedom. Dad was not a Democrat. He wasn't a Republican. He was a long-term libertarian. And that philosophy of, hey, individual responsibility, you do your thing, I'll do my thing, and together we'll figure it out. That's kind of what drove him, even in management. And pushing people to explore new levels of activity and responsibility. He pushed people to grow. He was fair, he delegated, he emphasizes the need for excellence and attention to detail. He didn't tolerate sloppiness. He fostered a can-do attitude. He promoted accomplishing, not just trying. He didn't like effort, he wanted accomplishment. And he had a low tolerance for why things can't be done. He hated it when somebody would come in with a problem and not potential solutions. And he had an organized approach to setting priorities and funding. So that's how he kind of viewed himself. Anybody that knows my dad well knows that he loves elephants. And when we were up there, Darlene and I went in the closet. There's elephants everywhere in the house. And then we went in the closet, there's like 1,000 more elephants. Because everybody for years kept giving him elephants. for his birthday, for Father's Day, for Christmas. And finally, I think Darlene or Dad, one of them said, okay, time out. We have a whole zoo here, we can't have any more. But I got a lot of time with my dad when he got sick, and we were driving back and forth from Michigan to the Mayo Clinic a few times, and so we got a lot of windshield time. And we talked about everything, that you can imagine. And one of the things I asked him, I said, well, why do you like elephants so much, Dad? And he goes, well, they're so smart. They can figure anything out. They're creative. They're strong. They can lift anything. They're really loyal. And he said, I really love how family-oriented they are. He goes, that's why I love elephants. And I think my dad was the bull elephant of our family, because that's who he was. He was like the bull elephant in charge of the family and making sure everybody was okay. And if somebody got off a little bit, he'd try to guide them back to the right direction. And he was always there. He was always loyal, always a very family-oriented person. One of the things that Dad told me from a very early age was work hard and play hard. And I liked, when I was growing up, he always gave us a lot of toys to play with, and so I liked playing with the toys, the boats and the scooters or whatever we had around at that time. But he always said, okay, you can play, but you got to work first. And he really ingrained that in us. And he did work hard. It's amazing what he accomplished. Right out of college, he worked for AC Delco. Then he worked for Thermo King from 56 to 75. Then he went down to KW Battery, where he was general manager of a battery company. And his job going in there was to position it to sell, because the company was not competitive. Really tough situation to be on. He did a good job there. Came back, worked at Thermo King, worked with Dale Johnson for many years, dear friend of Dad's. Dale's here today. Then he moved to Johnson Boiler. E.F. Hutton for a while when he was kind of down on his luck, things weren't working out. Instead of just sitting back, he said, I'm going to go learn how to be a stockbroker, and he did it. And then he finished his career down at Blackmere, which is a division of Dover. And I'm not going to read through all these things, but a couple of highlights of things that I found in his files. They said that for AC Delco, he left of his own volition. He was a customer contact man, served as the representative in the field. Everybody liked him. And he was really working on bombing navigation systems. That's what he was doing on the field. And he had the second highest U.S. government clearance, security clearance. How many knew that? Anybody? I didn't know that either. It's pretty amazing to find that out. Well, it's a Thermo King, and Dale was part of this journey, but he was part of a team that took it from $10 million up to $300 million. He went through a lot of different levels at Thermo King, but he ended up as vice president of engineering. Managed 130 people, $4 million budget, directed research programs, directed quality audits and training worldwide, served on the management council, analyzed Thermo King's technological position in the marketplace, obtained approval for a sweeping new strategic program, and then the head of Westinghouse had said, hey, if you want to stay here, we can put you in charge of a $100 million business as general manager. But he didn't do that. He was not the preneur, so he moved on from Thermo King. He had 3 patents. He had refrigeration capacity control, combination hinge and fluid connection, variable pitch centrifugal fan. And if anybody ever asked Dad, how does air conditioning work, you were in for like a 4-hour lecture. And I think all of us have had it.
12.
And I still
Michigan to Minneapolis,
yeah.
12 hours.
12 hours. But he knew his stuff. When he was at Johnston Boiler, he increased sales from $7 million to $12 million, increased operating profit from $191,000 to $900,000, decreased receivables. He started branches over in Brazil, Japan, and Korea. Initiated manufacturing function, personal relations function, pay-work standards, increased margins by 30%. Initiated an R&D program which resulted in the ability to burn a certain type of coal fine, creating an $11 million order, opened a whole new market, and reduced safety hazards and absenteeism. So he did all that in a year. Amazing how productive this guy was. His last job that he had in corporate life was at Blackmere Pump Division of Dover. He was a VP of Engineering and Government Products, and the president wrote this letter to him and said, my judgment, Blackmere has one of the most solid, disciplined product development programs within Dover Resources. The impact of your leadership and contributions will be felt for years as the engineers you've trained and developed do their thing. And that was it. Do your thing. And he did his thing. He did his own thing. So he had a really big league, big time corporate career. But, and I believe this is right, Georgia and Gina and Paula might correct me here, but Dad told me that Donnie, their dad, and he, when they were 15, had a scooter sales and service business. Did you guys know that?
Yes, they did. They had their own building that they rented.
Yeah, they had their own building. They rented a gas station with a little shop.
At 15?
At 15.
Rented a building?
Yeah, at
Who rented
15.
a building to that?
They had
Those two.
Uncle Bert may have been, he may have been in there. But I mean, 15 years old, you're an entrepreneur. It's amazing. 34 years old, 1965, him and Mom bought 33 acres on Lake Minnetonka. And they had 1 year. They had a contract for deed. If they didn't get this thing developed and pay it off in 1 year, they'd lose the whole thing. And so in 1 year, they got permission to subdivide it, which was really difficult because the county board didn't want to do it. So one guy on the board was a farmer, so Dad put on all these crusty jeans. He got some, got a little manure on his hands and went there and met the guy and shook his hands. Next day, he met with a guy on the board that was a banker. And so he was in the suit, had the briefcase, looked like James Bond. Yeah, he did that, and he sold it on doing this development. He also put in roads, put in all the roads, and he didn't believe in power lines, so he put in underground power lines back then. Amazing. Did all that within a year, and then started selling lots. And some of my earliest memories there were every weekend showing people around with a plat. I'd say, well, here's a lot, here's how much it is. So I was selling at that age because work before play, so I had to go out and sell. But it was a successful development, and now they've got some beautiful homes out there. This one's worth about $6 million there. So he made a long-term impact there, and Mom did as well. Not only did they buy this and develop it, but they moved 3 kids, young kids, into a house that had stood vacant for maybe 20 years, maybe more. And it was rebuilt from shambles. So, so I'm working in an engineering job, getting patents, managing people. I'm developing this land, and at the same time I'm fixing up this wreck of a house. And I got 3 kids. Oh, by the way, I'm still involved with racing and cars. Where does that energy come from? It's incredible. So then in 72 to 84, 41 years old, Mom and Dad bought 300 acres up in Rice Lake, and they decided we'll take what we learned about Bay Cliff. It was successful, we'll do it up there. Well, they got everything subdivided, got everything ready to go, got marketing brochures, hired a manager to put up there, and then the oil embargo hit, and gas prices went through the roof, and then some of the federal taxation programs changed, and it wasn't going to be viable. It didn't work. So it was something that he poured his heart and soul into, but it didn't work out. They called it Cedar Croft. But there's still people that live there today that bought lots and have homes there and have loved it and enjoyed it. 49 years old, he left this great career he had at Thermo King Westinghouse. He was VP of Engineering, had it made, and he bought a company in Racine, Wisconsin, Ray Joe Motor and Manufacturing Company. And he tried to turn this company around. And unfortunately, due to some IRS things that weren't disclosed to him when he bought it, it ended up not working out. So the IRS forced him, even though he had a local agreement with the IRS to keep 200 people employed, in Washington they said, no, we're not going to do that. So they shut him down. 84 years old, he published a book called Aunt Peggy, How Aunt Peggy Got Rid of Her Glasses by Doing Eye Exercises. Aunt Peggy was his mom's sister. She lived out in California and never wore glasses, and she had these eye exercises that she would do, and she swore if you did them consistently, you would need glasses. And so Dad at 84 sitting on the beach in Cave, and he's like, I know how to make some money. There's a lot of people that have bad eyesight, and my book would be cheaper than glasses, so I'm going to write this book. So he wrote the book. He did the photography. He hired it. Does anybody know what Fiverr is? Fiverr? Okay. Fiverr is, Mike knows what Fiverr is. So Fiverr is an online community of creative people that can do different things, and you pay them $5. You say, okay, $5, you do this for me. So through Fiverr, he found somebody that could do graphics for him. He did website design. He found web hosting. He went to GoDaddy first, one of the largest in the world, He called me one day and he goes, "Have you ever read their license agreement?" And that's what I use. And I go, "No, nobody reads those." He goes, "Well, I did. It was 47 pages long. And I was on the phone for 3 hours with those people because I didn't like what was in there." So he found a different web host company that he liked their terms and conditions. He found a printer, got it printed, and then he worked with PayPal to set up credit card processing. How many people could do that at 30 years old, much less 84? Just an incredible mind, but also incredible drive to accomplish something. He had ups and downs. Some of the things he tried didn't work. Some failed miserably. Some were tremendously successful. But one of the things that he told us, and Sean reminded me of this the other day, is not trying is failure. Failing does not mean you're a failure. You know, you did your best, you tried, it didn't work out. Roll the dice again. And that is the way he lived his life. He's also really big on helping others. He loved to help. And I love the shirt that Kayla and some of the kids got him. It says, "Keep calm and let Papa fix it." And it was so true. He did things like starting a school, doing all the research for the school and starting a school. And he helped me work on my car. So I was working hard. He helped Dan weld the bird cage. It's amazing how a 6'3" man could get into a bird cage. Oh, had to fix the player piano. Who knows about player pianos and how the air stuff works and all that? He worked with Kayla on the car, teaching her at an early age how to fix the car. Always working on a boat, for sure. Then he'd come down to our house on Bonaire and I'd say, "Dad, the pool heater's not working." So he'd crawl into this little room that was this tall, and he'd sit in there for hours working on the heater. And it had to be 120 in there, like a sauna. And I always had this discussion with Dad through life. You know, it was like, "Dad, why don't you just buy new stuff so you don't have to work on this stuff all the time?" And I could never figure it out. And I think it was two things. Number one, he really related to his Scottish heritage, which is cheap. We got copper wires from two Scotsmen pulling on a penny. So he was cheap. He drank the worst beer on Cayman, Stingray beer, right? Mike worked in the dive industry on Cayman, and Papa would invite him over. "Mike, you want to come over for a beer?" And Mike's like, "Oh, no, Stingray beer." But it was cheap. But the other thing that I figured out is he just really liked fixing stuff. He liked putzing. He enjoyed it, and I think it gave him a lot of pleasure doing something and figuring out how to make it work and how to make it better. And he told me, he said, "You know, if you're not improving something, it's going backwards. You always have to be working to improve something." And that's what he did. This last year, the magnetron the microwave broke down in Cayman. And so Dad went to the junkyard and found an old magnetron that didn't fit, so he modified it and he got the microwave working. I don't know how many people could figure that out. The new buyer down at Cayman we were going through some boxes and he saw all the stuff that Dad had. And he's like, "Man, I really wish I would have met your dad because his mind was like in so many different directions." You know, this guy was a medical doctor and he couldn't figure out how could Dad know so much about all these different subjects and have the tools and the resources to actually do something with it.